Today you'll see two gorgeous dresses, stripy, both of them. They have an all-in-one facing, but the technique is easier because it does not involve a burrito method, so it's very achievable. If you've been avoiding burrito rolls, this one's for you. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I have two dresses to share with you. And anytime I sew and share a dress, it's a special happy day because I absolutely love sewing and wearing dresses. It's my favorite thing to sew. I would have to admit it's my favorite thing to sew. These two made me super happy. What I'm talking about is a brand new release at Sinclair Patterns called Vera A-line dress. Beautiful. It's a very classic shape, the type that's super wearable, that will always be around. You'll always see this style in the shops, perfect for the hot weather. Look at the line out there. It is a sleeveless dress. It's meant to be sleeveless. So that's totally up my alley. I want basically everything to be sleeveless. Just now I was rummaging through my area of the closet where all my dresses are, and I'd say 90% of them are sleeveless, so this was perfect for me. The sleeveless armhole has good cover. It's not super low. The way it's finished on the inside is with an all-in-one facing, so you get a super clean sleeveless finish on the inside. Now, most of the ways that you see this done is with a burrito method. I've shown this many times on my channel. It's not something difficult, but there's a way to do it that doesn't involve a burrito method. And the way that this is possible is because there's a center back seam on this dress. So if there's a center back seam, you don't have to do any burrito method, and I'm going to show you how to do this. It's super, super easy. You're also going to realize if you have a pattern that has the all-in-one technique and you have to do a burrito roll, you're not into that, if you just add a center back seam, you can do this technique. So I think it's really cool. Now, this technique here for the facing is optional in the pattern. You also have instructions to finish the neckline and the armholes with bias tape. This is a type of bias tape that will go on the inside. So there's two options for you to choose from. Nice and fitted, beautiful fit around the bust, gorgeous. Bust starts over here. There's cup sizes A, B, C, D, E, F. So it's going to be an amazing fit, and it's going to be nice. The fit is going to be amazing until sort of a little bit below the bust, and then it's just going to flare out into an A-line silhouette. It's got a slightly curved hem, and the hem is finished with a hem facing. Nice wide facing. It's going to give that weighty look. Beautiful. I absolutely love that hem facing. I'm not against hem facings. The center back seam can be sewn completely closed. It's a pull-on dress. You're going to have enough space around the neckline circumference to get your head in through, easy peasy. But if you want a detail just for looks, you can add a little slit on the back as well with a little button. Now, I have mixed feelings about those slits, and the only time I'm willing to sew them is when we have a high neckline and there's actually no other way that you could get your neckline through where the circumference is not going to go past your head circumference. So I'm going to do that in those cases. But if I can get my head through, I'm not going to sew a detail that is not needed for function. I have wavy hair that I mainly wear loose. It tends to get stuck on that little button there. It tends to. So I'm not going to sew that option, although the option is there if you want to. Another option that I'm not sewing are inseam pockets, which are there in the tutorial, the instructions. I'm just not a fan of inseam pockets, especially when you just have a side seam and no waist seam where you can anchor them to. They just end up dangling around your thigh. So I'm not doing that. Of course, if you know my style of sewing, you probably know that. There's also patch pockets that you can sew on. I leave patch pockets more for shirts, for jackets, that type of thing. So I'm not doing that either. Mine is pocket free. Because the Vera dress is brand new at Sinclair Patterns, it'll be 27% off through April 6th. Now, Sana, who owns Sinclair Patterns, she contacted me and offered me a coupon code that is going to be active after the release period is over. So when the pattern goes back to its full price, then I'm going to write down a coupon code there in the description box and the top of the comment section so that you can keep getting that 27% off through the end of May. So that's amazing for the viewers here at Lifting Pins and Needles. So all the information will be down below. Remember, if you use my affiliate link, you don't pay anything extra. All that happens is that gets tracked and the designer will give me back a small commission. And that's one way I make an income creating helpful videos here on YouTube. Now, something similar. Check out this. This is the Alva top from Sinclair Patterns that was released a few weeks ago. It's a beautiful dolman style woven top, beautiful neckline. This one has the collar detail. You can sew it normal. I've got cuffs here. It's a beautiful top. The special release price for this one is over, but I was also offered a discount code for this one that will last till the 30th of April. to get it also at 27% off for longer periods. So I'll leave all that information down below. You can also find that discount code in this video about the Alva top, so that's amazing. You need light to medium weight fabric for the Vera dress. You could go a little structured or you can go flowier. If I'm going to sew something with a bit more volume like an A-line or swing silhouette, I'm always going to go flowy, but that's a personal preference. You know, you can do 100% linen or linen blends. You can do cotton, chambray, sisaka, that type of fabric. I would stay away from cotton twill, cotton sateen, denim. I think that is just way too stiff. Even if you find it in a lightweight category, it's just way too stiff for out like this from your body, which for me is not what I want. I want it closer. Rayon linen blends are amazing, tencel, heavier rayon twill, and both of my fabrics are rayon linen blends. They are mainly rayon. Rayon 70%, linen 30%, amazing look and texture of the linen, but with that amazing floatiness of the rayon. They are medium weight, they are not transparent, so I don't have to worry about putting anything underneath, so that's amazing. I think that's one of the best fabric choices in my opinion. You need some fusible interfacing if you're going to do the facings. Otherwise, for the bias tape, you make it yourself. I think it will just look amazing if you make it yourself from the same fabric. It is hidden on the inside though, so you could use something contrasting if you wanted to. My inclination is always to make it from the same fabric. It just looks so much better. If you want to do that little slit here at the back, then you're going to need one small button. Sizing is available from 0 to 30 US up to a 63-inch hip. And Sinclair Patterns has something unique over here, which are the height files. Amazing, petite, regular, tall. You find what you are there according to your height, choose that file first, and then go to the size chart and check out your circumferences. And you're bound to get a better fit because everything's accounted for, you know, the length over here, bodice length, all that changes with our height, right? You know, we might have the same circumference as someone else, but it's going to fit totally differently. So in this case, the toe file works wonders for me. I'm so glad it exists because I rarely have to make pattern fitting adjustments. That is amazing. Bust cup sizes in this pattern are there as well, which is amazing. A, B, C, D, E, F. This is always the difference between your high bust and your full bust. It has nothing to do with what your bra says, so ignore that. Just measure your body to figure out what your sewing bust cup size is. Mine is a C, so the CD option works perfect. Little dot over here, you know how much I love those. So happy to see them. I chose a size 14. Let me show you the chart here. I'm pretty much a size 14 US at Sinclair Patterns at the moment. The amount of ease you're going to get around the bust is around 3.5 inches. Around that, it depends on the size and the bust cup size you're sewing. But it's going to be nice, you know, not fitted, not loose, perfect, nothing gaping under here, perfect. Now, the waist and hips, you're going to have a lot of ease. So don't worry, it's going to be fine. If you think you need to blend sizes, I would think you wouldn't need to blend sizes. I think you should just focus on your bust size. I just sewed a straight size 14, toe file, 0 changes. And with the first dress, you'll see the length is perfect. But if I belt it, it turns out a little short. So for my second version, I ended up adding 1.5 inches just to have a little bit of a longer dress so that when I belt it, it doesn't end up that short. I mean, it's not short. It's not a mini dress by any stretch. For sewing, we use a 5/8 seam allowance for all the seams. We're using the sewing machine and the serger. I'm going to be showing you how to sew this dress, mainly focusing on the neckline and the no burrito roll, clean, sleeveless, all-in-one facing finish. It'll be super helpful. Let's see. These are the main pattern pieces for the Vera dress from Sinclair Patterns. This is very similar to the way I cut it out with my fabric. Of course, not all the way across. This was slightly going down that way so that it could fit on my fabric. That is the front, that is on the fold right there. The back is not on the fold, so this was the edge of the selvage, and I put it all the way to the edge right there. There is going to be a center back seam. I do have a bust start there. I'm sewing the CD cup size option. There's also A and B and E and F. You can see that below the bust, it goes in at the waist, just below the bust, but then it flares out nicely. The hem is slightly curved at the bottom. There are other pattern pieces I'm going to show you next. Here are the rest of the pattern pieces for the Vera dress. These long pieces that we have at the bottom are the hem facings. You can see the nice curve. They are both cut on the fold. The front one is slightly longer than the back one. The back one is cut on the fold. Even though the dress has a center back seam, the facing doesn't have a center back seam for the hem to avoid bulk there. I did interface them. I did use block fusing system.
which means I interfaced my piece of fabric first slightly larger than what I needed, and then I cut out my facings. I did the same for the facings on the top. This is going to be an all-in-one facing, clean, sleeveless finish, but it doesn't require the burrito method. So it'll be a really fun sew. That is the front. It's cut on the fold right there. The back is not cut on the fold because we have a center back seam. So the facing also has a center back seam right there. As usual with a woven garment, I'm stay stitching the neckline. This is the front. It's rounded. I'm going from the shoulder into the center. And then I'm flipping the fabric and starting from the other shoulder into the center just to keep it all symmetrical. Seam allowance later is going to be 5/8, so I'm doing this at 1/2 inch. The back isn't cut on the fold, so I have 2 separate pieces. So I'm going to do the same for both of them from the shoulder into the center. Because this is a sleeveless garment and I don't want the armholes to stretch out, I'm also going to stay stitch these. This is something I don't typically do when the garment is going to have sleeves set in later, but for a sleeveless garment, there's no harm done in doing it as well here. I have this bust up pinned, and because this bust up goes straight across, it's not angled, I'm going to try to match up these stripes. So I have a pin on each of these stripes and I've got my mark right there, and I'm going to sew this carefully. Hopefully it doesn't distort that much. If this was an angled dart, then the stripes would distort 100%. I'm knotting this by hand because I didn't backstitch. Looks pretty good to me. I'm also trying to match up the stripes on the shoulder seams. That's why you see so many pins. I try to remove them as I go. Here I've got the facing pieces. What I've done is serge all the edges so that's ready to go. This is the back. The back is not cut on the fold on the dress or the facing, so that's what you see there. I've serged the shoulders, the sides, the bottom of the facings, all of that. And now I'm going to sew the shoulders. I'm not trying to match up any stripes here because it's going to be on the inside, it's not going to be seen. So once I've got these shoulder seams pressed and open, I'm going to go and align them onto the neckline. Here's the dress all extended on the table. These are the shoulder seams right there. That's the front, that's the back. Bust darts hang around over there. And so this is right sides up, and I've got the same thing with the facings. So we need to just match them up, right sides together. This is going to be an all-in-one clean sleeveless type of facing, but it's going to be easier than others you've seen in the past because we do have a center back seam. So there's no burrito method involved. It's going to be quite simple. What we need to do is pin the neckline and pin both armholes and get them sewn. And then we can just flip it right sides out because we have space to do that because everything's open here from the back. So we won't be rolling around and doing that type of thing that needs to happen when you have a back that's all on the fold. When you have a center back seam, it's much easier. I'm going to be hand basting all of this together. I've hand basted everything together. Remember, we're sewing the neckline and the armholes. It doesn't matter what you do first. I'm just going to do the armholes first. Seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. Quite a big seam allowance, so just concentrate so you can go ahead and do it smoothly. After I finish both armholes, I'm going to go ahead and do the neckline. Of course, I'm not going to leave this huge seam allowance inside, so I'm trimming it down to about half. I'm doing that for the neckline and the armholes. After that, we snip around everywhere. It's all curved. It'll relieve the tension when we turn this right sides out. Okay, everything's sewn, trimmed, snipped, all of that. It doesn't seem possible, but it is. So I'm just going to start pushing this through here, and we're going to be able to turn it right sides out. So that's one side. Now I'm going to go through the next. I'm going in through the front, like here. And then I'm bringing the back out through the front. I don't find the burrito method difficult, but I know a lot of people can get confused with the rolling around. So this doesn't involve that. You just turn it right sides out. You can see we've done it. See, it's all turned right sides out. Here are the facings right here. This is the wrong side of the dress. Now what we do with every single facing we ever do is understitch. So we're going to be pushing the seam allowance underneath the facing right here towards the facing and sewing on the edge, getting as far as we can. You know, we can't go through that area, but as far as the machine lets us, we do the armholes, and then we're going to do the neckline as well in several stages. Now we have 3 longish seams. Now we just have to finish side seams and the center back, and they are all done in the same way. So I've got the dress right sides together. The facings are all over here. Now we just have to extend these facings like this and catch them as we catch the side seams. So that's all in one go down there. The same for the back. We extend this facing up so that it's right side together. Catch the facing and the center back seam all in one go, and then the side seam all in one go. And that's how this dress is finished. Very easy.
Here we have our first version. This is a gray and white stripe. This is not a common color that I wear, but I've had this in my collection for such a long time. And check out the texture of this fabric. It's just amazing. Gray is pretty neutral. It'll go with everything, and I'm happy I chose it. The drape on this fabric is amazing, but it's also weighty, so it's just perfect. Sleeveless armholes, round neckline. When I show it to you on, you'll see it's not a low neckline at all. I can bend and do all my life things without worrying that this is going to show anything. The center back is right there. It distorts the stripes a little bit, but that's fine. Look, the center back seam doesn't have shaping. So if you wanted to remove that seam allowance and cut it on the fold, you could. I would only do that if I was going to do the bias tape finish on the top, because you know, it doesn't make a difference. But if you want to get rid of the seam allowance on the back and do the facing technique, then you'd have to do the full burrito method, which is lengthier, and you know, so I would say I just keep the seam allowance. I don't mind having a center back seam, and plus it's easier to place on the fabric to get your layout to work with less fabric usually, because you can sort of overlap the pieces. Now let me show you from the inside what this facing looks like. Now I had to understitch this facing in lots of little segments, you know, to get it past my sewing machine. You can't just do it all in one go. So that's fine. The areas closer to the neck here don't have understitching, but I just press them really well. This is the type of facing that goes over the bust. So it goes like this. Perfect. The types of facings I don't like, and I have seen in some patterns, are ones that go straight across, and then they end up cutting you right at the height of your bust. It looks awful. So the only facings that are acceptable in my view are these ones that curve, or just a really long one, but then it just turns sort of into a lining, right? At the back, it looks like that. There's also a seam right there. I hand tacked it to the seam allowance here. I hand tacked it over to the side seam, and that's how that looks. There's a center back seam. And then at the bottom, we have this beautiful wide facing, so nice. Take your time to do it so it all ends up even. I hand base this, of course. I do it while I'm pressing. Large sections of the facing at the bottom, really nice and straight, perfect. And I hand based it on the ironing board, basically. The ironing board is covered by this thick fabric metallic type thing. There's no way I'm going to sew my garment onto the ironing board. So I just take my time to do that really nicely so that it ends up amazing. All the seams are serged prior and pressed open. I think that's super neat. I love how this turned out. I'm going to show it to you styled on its own with a belt and with 2 toppers.
This is my Vera dress from Sinclair Patterns. It's a swing style dress. Mine is a size 14, toe file 0, changes for the fit here made as per the pattern. My fabric is a stripy rayon linen blend, 70% rayon, 30% linen. That's why it's so nice and drapey. I wouldn't make a swing style in a fabric that didn't drape, so I think this is perfect. Nice and fitted at the bust and the high bust, but then at the waist and hips it just flares out. Gorgeous. There is a center back seam. Now on the hem, there is a hem facing that I'm about to show you. It's quite wide. It's curved. It follows the shape of the dress and creates a lovely weighty look. The neckline is rounded, sleeveless armholes. It's all finished with a all-in-one facing, clean sleeveless finish. But there's no burrito method over here, and that's possible because it's a center back seam. You can see I can bend over, and I think the depth of this round neckline is perfect. The type of facing that goes above the bust, so I think that's perfect, doesn't cut through the bust. There is a bust dart there that fits perfectly for the CD cup size option that I chose, and it's just a wonderful floaty dress. I can't wait to wear it. It barely touches my skin. It's super fresh, perfect for summer. I'm all in favor of swing dresses. Not everything has to be super fitted and waist defining. And if I want to define my waist a little bit, there's always the belt. Now, I should have made my dress maybe an inch longer to have the belt not end up so short. I mean, it's not too short, but it is short-ish. I can still wear it like that. And this is the way I'm going to wear it with jackets on top. Here, I've got it paired with a denim shirt in grey. I've kept my silver belt and I've brought out some grey heels, gorgeous. At my age, I'm still quite happy with this length of garment. I don't mind showing my legs from above the knee down, so it doesn't turn into a mini dress. But for the next version of this dress that I make, I'm gonna add about an inch of length so that with the boat it doesn't end up as short as this. But very neutral, very wearable, love it. Here is the same concept. I have a shorter topper with a dolman sleeve. I've brought out all the red accessories here to liven it up compared to the other outfit was more neutral. Belt, I absolutely love how this looks. I figured out if I wear the belt looser, the dress doesn't hike up as much. So I've got the belt quite loose here, but it still defines the waist. And it's the only way I wear swing styles with a top. It's got me all over it. I can't wait to wear this out. Of course, anything red and I'm happy.
My second version is also stripy. You have seen this fabric before, and I still think I have about 2 yards left because when I found it, I went a little bit irrational and bought like 6 or 7 meters. So I've been making a few garments out of it. I've made shorts, I've made a top, I've made a shirt, and now I have a Vera dress. I love this fabric. It's just so amazing. It's so soft, it's drapey, but it's also got that linen texture, and these 3 colors together have me written all over them. I love it. Now, the only difference I did with this one was that I finished everything with bias tape that I made myself, but I made it exposed so that you could see it on the bias. I think it looks so beautiful. That contrast of the stripes with this going on the bias is always so pretty. At least in my eyes, whenever I see that, I'm like, I love that. So I really wanted to do that. And you would lose this detail if I just sewed the binding to the inside, then no one would see that. So that's why I did it like that. I just wrapped the binding around the raw area. Now I left the armholes the same. I did lower the neckline a little bit though, by 5/8 of an inch, just in the center so that it didn't end up too high. Only change I made was that because when we sew binding around the raw edge, we don't lose any seam allowance. So that's all. So beautiful. I made sure to have that seam invisible because I managed to match up the order of the stripes on the back. So no one will ever know there is a center back seam. Isn't that great? Let me show you this from the inside. There's more contrast with this one with the wrong and the right side. So you're going to see it a little bit better. There is the center back seam, pressed open, side seams pressed open, the amazing hem with the hem facing, love that. Bust darts right here, I managed to match them up so that they don't store on the side. You'll barely know that the bust dart is there. I managed to match up the shoulder seams with the stripes there. This did take a little bit of brain power to cut out, let's be honest. It took longer than I would like, but it's always worth it. Same as to get this right in the same order. Yeah. Now the side seams, that was something I couldn't really match up, so I just left those be. There was no way I could really match those up without wasting a lot of fabric, so at least I managed to match up the shoulders and the back, and that makes me super happy. So let's see this one on its own with a belt and with 2 toppers.
This is my second Vera dress from Sinclair Patterns, same size as the grey one, size 14, tall file. This one is a little longer. I added 1.5 extra inches way above the hem to not interrupt the hem facing. And it's the same flowy style, just a stripy rayon linen blend, 70% rayon, 30% linen. I think the flow is amazing. There is the hem at the bottom with the big facing. It's a really nice technique. It makes the hem fall beautifully. And this time, instead of doing the all-in-one facing, I did binding, bias tape that I made myself, and I love how that looks on the bias and exposed. That's what I did there. I didn't put it to the inside of the garment. Very happy with the depth of this neckline and the cover of the armhole. It's just perfect. Bust dart there, very discreet. I managed to match up the stripes vertically on that dart, and this is going to be such a floaty dress to wear on its own. No belt required if you don't need one, but of course the belt is always going to be an option, especially if I want to wear a jacket on the top. Absolutely love this one. I love this combination of 3 colors. I've just added on a red belt here so you can see the difference. Now with this belt, the skirt rides up a little bit and it's just above the knee, exactly where I want it to be. So happy I added the 1.5 inches. You know, this is always going to be a personal preference. But with the belt, it does make a big difference. You know, the waist becomes a little bit more defined, but you still have the amazing volume and flow of the skirt there. Absolutely love how this looks like with a belt. Here I'm wearing a cropped linen blazer on its own without the belt, so you can see what the difference is with the belt. Whenever I wear something with a bit more volume with a topper, I always grab the belt because it just makes a huge difference. I would not wear it as is right there. I wouldn't be happy with all the volume everywhere. So huge difference with the black belt there. It just makes the silhouette a little bit more balanced and it defines where the waist is on the body. So I really love this. The black, can't go wrong. Check out the size of this bag. It fits a water bottle. I love big bags like that. And this is a great outfit I could really enjoy. There's no way to go wrong with a little black blazer, and especially a short one like this one, I think matches the silhouette of the skirt perfectly. This is a ready-to-wear blazer, by the way. Here we have a more wintry autumn look. This is also a ready-to-wear jacket in like a stretch velour type of thing. I've got my other pair of boots that are a little more formal. They have a heel that's a little finer, same as the point. And this is perfect. You know, it'll never get that cold here that I need more than this. This is just perfect. Again, with the belt, I think it looks really nice. And it's another way I can stretch out the wear of this dress to go through the whole year, all the way from summer to autumn, winter. But, you know, context, I live in Brazil. My winters are very kind. So this would be enough. And check out that this jacket is longer, but it still looks great. I think the dress can go a long way with different types of tops. I think the belt here makes all the difference.
I'm very happy with my 2 Vera dresses. They barely touch your skin. They're so light and floaty. Perfect for hot weather. I'm headed into autumn and winter, but let me tell you, it's in the high 90s still. It's still very hot. I'll be enjoying sleeveless garments for a long time still, so I'm happy to have them. Love that you can wear them loose on their own or belted. You know, they're so versatile, and love the stripiness. Stripy heaven. Love it. Don't forget to check out the Vera dress at Sinclair Patterns. Check out all the sales and codes and information down below. I'm going to be sewing this weekend, believe it or not. So look out for my smiley face on Monday. See you then. Bye.